All right, so fear and self-doubt. Number one reason I find people don't practice martial arts is because they're afraid to get started. They think they're going to go in and have the nose broken and black eyes and not going to be able to go to work. So that in itself is something new that we're not familiar enough with. You think about people, there's a mouse in the room, and people jump up on desks or wherever they're at, and it's like, can the mouse hurt you? Will the mouse come and actually bite you? No, that mouse is scared for its life. It's full of fear, but we're afraid of that too. You know, maybe a little cockroach or something, they don't bite, but they scare the hell out of us. So we have to think about what we're afraid of, and do we understand it? One of the things I learned going in nature, the most important thing to study first is what can hurt you. Poisonous plants, poisonous snakes, poisonous insects. If you know them well, then the others are okay. It's not one of those. So you don't need to be afraid, and you don't need to be afraid of something that you're, just because you don't know what it is. I like the acronym FEAR, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. Fear should help us avoid getting hurt. But how much is fear just protecting us emotionally? So, afraid to ask for that date. You know, afraid to meet that new person. Afraid to go to that social gathering. Afraid to take this job offer because of change. Maybe you really don't like your situation you're in, but the fear of change, you don't do anything about it. You don't really know until you cross that bridge what the other thing's going to be about. But the fear of change, the fear of new, the fear of the unknown can direct our lives. I'm a big believer that the universe throws things at us, and if you grab hold, you can get a lot of guidance in the life that was somewhat meant for you, we'll say. But you can avoid it with fear. You know, opportunity knocks. Certain person you meet, and they say, you know, come out, meet us this certain night. And maybe you're a little uncomfortable going out, so you don't go. But maybe that night you would have met something. Maybe you would have met a special relationship. Maybe you would have met someone that could put you in the work that you would love. But you don't know because you didn't go. Fear holding us back. How many people like a subject, maybe want a career, but self-doubt stops them from pursuing it? Oh, I'm not smart enough. You know, I could never do that. When in reality, just like Kung Fu, time and work, little by little. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's where patience, perseverance comes into it. The real way to get out of our fear and self-doubt is to get to know something. But you don't necessarily get to know it all at once. You get to know it little by little. The child learning to swim, they're afraid of the deep end. They don't really know it's the deep end until someone else is afraid for them. Right? They don't know. Then the parents maybe scream, or and then the child thinks something, just like why we're afraid of bugs. Parents scream, so now we're afraid of bugs. We don't even know why. We just know we see that, scream. But how do we get used to that deep end? How do we get over the fear? You go out and you swim, little by little. Put the floaties on. First they can actually come off the bottom that they can touch, but then come off the bottom a little bit and take the floaties away, and then they can touch the bottom and then come away from the bottom, and they can stay up a little bit, and then they can go deeper because they know they can stay up. No different than the kid learning to ride a bicycle. You'll never be able to learn how to ride a bicycle if you don't get on the bicycle. Too afraid? it'll never happen. You can't learn to swim without getting wet. These are important concepts in life. You can never learn to defend yourself without some work with partners and actually attack and defense and moving and practicing with somebody. I'm not saying somebody has to try to take your head off, but just like the child in the floaties, you have to do baby steps little by little. And in time, you build upon that confidence. I like to think of our self-limiting beliefs like a box, okay? How big is your box? You know, how much have you expanded your horizons, so to speak? The person who's afraid to do anything, the box gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So many people don't even want to leave their home. And you probably know people like that. Just going outside can create anxiety. A lot of people living with anxiety, a lot of people taking medications because they don't know why they have the anxiety. But this is a big part of it. Maybe as a child, your parents were very fearful. And so they put a lot of fear in you. And so you avoided things. Worrying also about what the neighbors might think, what your classmates might think, what the people at work might think if you do that, whatever that is. Are they going to make fun of you? There are people who experience something 7, 8, 9 years old in elementary school, and now they're 50, 60, 70 years old, and they still have that fear of other people laughing at them. Anybody else have that feeling? What are people most afraid of? You heard public speaking? You heard that people actually were polled and they're more afraid to get up in front of others and speak than they are of dying. They'd rather die. It's like, dying? Speak in front of people. I'll die. I'd rather die. Sounds crazy, right? But for some reason, psychologically, it seems easier. Just get me out of here. I don't want to have nothing to do with this. Where did that come from? This imagination, this thought process of somebody making fun being like the end of the world. Yeah, I believe it's something from children. You know, you got made fun of and you didn't know how to handle it. And you never learned how to handle it. So, in all honesty, I was absolutely one of those people. I would feel nearly sick if a teacher said, you have to do an oral report. I'd feel it right in here like, oh, and I'd be so worried about that darn thing. For however many weeks we were supposed to prepare for it. I'd keep thinking about that. I keep thinking about that. I don't even know why. But yeah, here, 15, 16, 17 years, I've been speaking every Thursday night. I go up in front of schools, hundreds of people, and no problem. Why? What happened from back then to now? A lot of exposure. Speaking in front of people. Started with small groups, and then bigger and bigger and bigger. Now it doesn't matter, thousands of people. I don't care, just do what I'm doing. They laugh, I don't care. You know, you need to have a short memory, too, for people making fun. Just like, okay, they laugh. What'd they laugh at? Maybe I can improve that. Find, you know, what did I do? Why are they laughing at me? Something, okay. But if I accept that they're laughing at me because I'm not good enough, isn't that box getting smaller? Those limiting beliefs start making your world get smaller because you're unwilling to step out of that box and do what might be scary, what might hurt your feelings, what might challenge you. You know, a muscle can't grow unless it's challenged. You have to lift heavier weight, and the muscle gets stronger. But guess what happens if you don't lift that heavier weight? gets weaker, atrophies. Yeah, I remember one of the worst pains I ever saw somebody in, there's been worse, but woman hurt her shoulder reaching for something. Oh, next time she reached, oh. So they start reaching with the other hand all the time. Guess what happens over time? Eventually you can't lift that arm at all. The body shuts off the energy to that shoulder, and now it becomes what maybe you've heard, frozen shoulder. Anybody ever have that? Did you have to go to physical therapy and break out of it? And did they put like a leather belt in your mouth and bite onto it? That's what they did with the patients I was working with. Yeah, I was working assistant for physical therapists, and they were screaming. They were literally biting onto wallets and belts, and they would work a little bit every time they came, work a little bit, work a little bit, work a little bit, because it's incredibly painful when the thing freezes up. It freezes not cold, it's seizing up because of lack of circulation, lack of fluids. It starts to stick together. Use it or lose it is a real concept. And that's why use it or lose it also fits here. If you don't expand your mind and your brain and your abilities, then it's going to shrink. Nothing stays the same. The law in this world is change. Nothing stays the same. You're either growing or you're dying. And so you should be trying something new regularly. That's why I love this practice, because there's always new, even within what you already know. Just having a conversation a minute ago, it's like the same drill, but because you know it better, you can do it a little differently. And you continue to learn from the same drill. This system, this style, this practice is developmental. It's progressive, not just simple to complex in technique, how hard the technique is to do. It's also coordination, it's focus, it's your body's ability to do it. Comes gradually, not just memorizing 100 kicks and 100 punches and 50 chin na or 500 chin na, whatever it is, which is a lot of martial arts. Memorize countless techniques. The more techniques you can remember, the higher your rank. And they think that's martial arts. But when you work with really skilled people, you learn that's not martial arts. Your ability to apply what you know, and I don't just mean to fight, I mean to your mobility, your coordination, your ability for your mind and your body and your breath to organize and coordinate together as a one. That takes a lot of practice, because most people are not coordinated together. So always being led in class with what to do. Following a group. You know, you go to a Zumba class or some aerobic something or whatever, and always following a leader. That's fine for brand new. You need that. But we want to move into following ourselves. Our own rhythm, our own need, our own abilities. And then we push ourselves so we can grow. See, we make this mistake with our children too, or the people in our lives. Could be husband and wife. If one always does for the other can't do for themselves eventually. You are handicapping that person. You're actually making that other person, and think about a child growing. Let's go back to the swimming. You always carry them in the water. Always, always over. You never let go. They're growing bigger, bigger, full adults still holding their hand. Yeah, they can believe that they can't do for themselves because you won't let go. Do you ever hear the story of the elephant? The baby elephant? You put a little tie on its leg to a tree, and the baby can't get away. And they leave that tie to that tree, and you know how big an elephant gets? And all they got to do is put that little thing on that little tree, and it believes it can't get away. When he could rip a big tree right out from the ground. But they don't believe they can. So that limit is taught. And we're not much different. our limits, our fears, our self-doubts, our lack of confidence, our limiting beliefs are learned. So then the question is, can we change it? Yes, absolutely, 100% can. But are you willing to face your fears? Are you willing to step onto the floor in a martial arts school and try something new? Are you willing to ask for that date? Are you willing to ask for that raise? What's the worst that could happen? They say no? If they say no and they continue to say no, and for whatever the reason, maybe they can, maybe they don't want to, maybe you're just not productive enough, but you want more, should you just complain about the one who won't give it to you? Or should you go elsewhere? A more confident person goes elsewhere to pursue what they believe they're worth and what they can do in their lives. But we don't do that when we're afraid and we doubt ourselves. There is nothing more beautiful than a person who expands their mind and their life and grows into something new as the time goes by, as the years goes by. Because again, I say, either you're growing or you're dying. And if all you do is complain about and remember and regret yesterday, what kind of future you think you have? You spend so much energy, so much time, so much thoughts about what's already gone, what's already done. Even the moment we started this meditation is already gone. This meditation talk, I mean. Suicide rates, I think, are higher than ever before. Depression, anxiety, higher maybe than ever before. In my opinion, in my experience, I'm seeing that, going back to that handicapping, that has happened more than before. Parents not wanting their child to have any suffering, any challenges, any pain. And in the process of protecting them and keeping them safe, they created somebody that's very weak, with a very thin skin, that can't handle any criticism. People today are very, very short in their ability to handle any criticism. They're so afraid to do the wrong thing. So each individual has become smaller and smaller and smaller in their self-belief. So what do we need to do? We need to nudge that child, to push them to try something new. You know, in your practice here, you try something new. You try to go through it, even though I don't want to do that. You do it more, you do it repeatedly, what happens? Confidence only comes from things you've experienced. Someone who goes out on a limb more often and tries what they're afraid of, afraid to get up in front of people and just speak. But they do it anyway. And they're scared every time. They do it anyway. They always feel better afterwards. And the confidence that builds does cross over into other areas. Because they realize that fear that was holding them back before wasn't so bad, and now they're more willing to try something else. So that confidence, they're not going to have the confidence of somebody who's a professional diver and goes out on the high dive and does all these flips. They're not going to be able to do that, but that diver is very confident doing that. Because they built up to that little by little by little by little by little. That's a different kind of confidence. That's a skill level confidence. But skills can be from high to low and everything in between. If you don't go out on the limb, you can't grow. Personal experience builds real confidence. You steal that from your child, you steal that from any loved one, people you care about, you don't have to do that. You think about it. You always pick things up for somebody. Let me get that for you. Let me get that for you. Eventually they can't. And then maybe one day you're not around. And they have to do it for themselves. And they get hurt. Because they never had to do. Or, the husband and wife. Wife did everything for the husband. Wife dies. Husband doesn't know how to do anything. Wash clothes, wash dishes, buy food, what food, where to go, blah, 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 blah. Think about that. It's just an example, but it's no different than the parent and the child. Do everything for them they can't do for themselves. Now, what happens when they have to? What happens when they get to that age around 18, 19, or graduate college, or there's a point when you're on your own, right? Eventually? Not yet, but eventually. There's a point when you're on your own. And if you don't have any belief in yourself, and you start trying to do things, and you have a hard time, you think about it. You go for a job, you don't get it. You're trying to pay your bills, you don't have enough money. Negative starts to build up. You actually start to shrink because you're not capable, and because things were always done for you, you shrink faster. Right away you want to make that call. Mommy, help me. Daddy, help me. Somebody help me. Somebody has to help me because I can't do for myself. Because you think you can't do for yourself. And you never faced adversity. If you've never faced adversity, guess what happens when you finally do? There's a good chance you could fall apart. A lot of people today, it's like that. They can't handle it. Again, depression, anxiety, suicide rates through the roof. The shootings we have, these are people who snapped. Many, many years of something like this that made this very small. Like the world is against them and I'm very small rather than me being a part of the world and us all working together in this world. No, you're somehow separate and small. Where did that come from? Right from even a baby. Do you know, people don't know this, the child that has not learned to walk on their own, that you put in the bouncy chair, you know the bouncy chair, they put their feet through and they bounce in between the door, right? And everybody's, oh, they're up on their feet. It's one of the worst things you can do for a baby. Imagine that. You're putting them upright on their legs before their body's developed to do it. Now the wrong muscles are developing. That baby has to lift its head from the beginning. It has to roll over from the beginning. It has to crawl from the beginning. Little by little, but not for the first day. It takes time. They build the muscles to do this stage, then this stage, then this stage. Eventually, they try to stand up and they fall down. Why do they try to stand up? Because they see you standing up. And eventually, they want to walk so badly, they're so determined that their body develops that point. But what happens? They fall down. They fall down. I'll never forget my son. I used to hold the finger. And then eventually, we give him a marker. And he'd grab the marker like it's a finger. And then as he's ready to walk. It's like, it's psychological. It's unbelievable. No support, but he thought he had the support. And when I first raised my children that age, maybe 2001, I knew some of this. I knew some of it, but we had them in the bouncy chair, a little bit. But I learned that the progression, the struggle, the failure, do you know they fall thousands of times in those first few years? Up, down, up, down, up. They learn perseverance. Keep trying for what you really want. They don't go through that, they never develop that. And the child who doesn't crawl enough because you put him in the bouncy chair and got him walking too soon, you had some kind of apparatus to help them sooner. The child who doesn't crawl enough, doesn't develop the brain enough, and ends up more likely to have neurological or learning disabilities, lower IQs. The body builds the brain. And this is true for our whole lives. Another reason why this practice is so darn powerful. Because learning from the simple to the complex, learning internal body control, how to control the body and the mind with the breath, how to manipulate chi and blood through movement, all of this keeps the brain very well developed. Because from simple to complex makes connections. Science knows this today. The more complex the movement, the more brain connections are developed. And I don't know an art that's more sophisticated that way than Bagwachang, the art we practice here. That's why I love it. It's not just what's the most practical for fighting. It's practical for fighting if you work it for fighting. You want to fight, you work with students, with each other a lot, and you fight more. Get more and more serious. Most people don't come for that. People come for more personal experience, for more developing themselves. And this art literally can make you smarter. It's so complicated, but you don't do that to the beginner. But it can become so complicated that it will light up your brain where you'll notice you're different. Your mind thinks differently. There's more clarity. And don't forget, everything we do is meditation. What? People think meditation is just sitting. No, sitting meditation is the fundamental. No different than we sit and we do breathing exercises. Do you just breathe when we're doing breathing exercises? Is that the only time you breathe? Of course not. You're always breathing. The question is, are you breathing properly? If you develop your breathing, you will breathe much more efficiently and effectively, so you literally have more energy. Your body's more oxygenated. You know how to relax deeply, which is directly connected to why you're more oxygenated. The more tension you have, the less oxygenated you are, which means you run out of energy. You can't function. Easy to tire, foggy brain, more anxiety. Breathing can calm anxiety. But everything we do is meditation? Yes, because from the simple to the most complex, you 100% focus. Exactly how I move. Remember I grabbed your hand earlier? And I want you to feel that circle. There's a circle here. And if I focus, not just on do this, block, strike, I'm actually, how I make that circle. Oh, the body is even moving from back here. Interesting. It's not just this. So you see that in the heart styles. You did some heart style. Very direct, right? No, we don't move like that. Our body moves this way. It's much more supple, like snake-like. So even this is developing the body connection to the hand. And how do I throw this hand? Has to come from the body. The most simple thing becomes even complex within the body to make it work better. How do you get there? 100% focus when you practice that. If your mind is just superficially stuck on remembering that technique so you can test and make a rank and get a piece of paper one day, no. And I get complaints from people in the industry, with friends of mine, people I talk to, about the black belt or the black sash. How come nobody has? Because I'm not doing this to give credentials. I'm doing this to develop lives, to develop people. And so we make that rank just much higher, reaching for the stars. So maybe you come back with the moon. On the way there, you get everything you need. Because there's no end there. There's no there. It's just you continue to practice. Like every test we do, it's a workshop to develop you. Let's make sure you understand what you just did all these last couple of years or months, wherever you're at. And we may spend all day just working on this stuff. So you appreciate what you already know. And then, yeah, it's fun. You learn new things eventually. But I love to tell people, I started Chinese martial arts in 1984. Learned long fist, which is what we teach in the youth program, learned some Tai Chi, and then started Bakwa around 86, 87. And it was so sophisticated and odd and strange that it just intrigued me. So 87 to 2020 is 33 years of this art. You don't see me doing jiu-jitsu and Krav Maga and taekwondo and boxing and all these other things. This art, if you practice, is so much. I'm never bored with this art. Never bored. Because it's not because of quantity, it's because of quality. It's got a depth that I still don't know. I mean, it's 35, I don't know how many years, 33 plus, that I still want to understand more about this one, not others. Why? Martial arts done well, practiced right is enough. How many superficial things do you need? How much of a collection do you need? You can go wide and learn all the different styles. I remember you drive around, you go maybe Union City or something, Jersey City, you see a sign that's got 10 different styles of martial arts this guy's teaching, whoever that is. I don't have that. How deep can I go? That's why our most advanced students, they have that feeling. That's why they're still here. They have that feeling. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate them. And that experience from simple to complex, and how the mind and the body become more and more one, develops a kind of way that this stuff gets erased. You know you, no one else can hurt you that way emotionally. You just ignore them. You know when somebody criticizes or condemns or complains, makes fun, whatever they do, it doesn't have to affect you from the inside if you're in control of you. But you're not, anything can tip you. And you can easily lose you, because then you start manipulating yourself in a way that makes other people okay with what you're doing. I'm not talking about doing bad things, hurting people. I'm talking about living your life, what you want to do, your way, your job, your way, your creativity. You try, you make something new, you innovate, people love it, great, you benefit. People hate it, okay, try something else. It can be that simple if you're strong inside. But the only way to have that kind of strength inside, if you weren't born with it or raised with it, is to develop it day after day after day, gradually. Which is what Kung Fu is. Achievement through effort, consistent effort, over time. Let's go to meditation.